with Tyson Bryden.
Welcome to another episode of Nonstop Rock Talk. I am your host, Tyson Bryden. It is with great pleasure that I welcome today's guest, Brian Vollmer from Helix. Brian, welcome. How's it going?
Nice to be here today.
Thank you.
Things are going great.
Good. It's great to have you. So before we begin, I want to share a little bit about what it means for me to have you on the show today. Back in the 80s, I guess I was between the ages of 10 and 13, so I was young. And as you know, at that time, hard rock music was important to many of us, and that's kind of when I got turned on to music, was around that age. So, of course, if you turned on Much Music or Toronto Rocks, and you'd see the videos by, Motley Crue, Twisted Sister, Rat, Quiet Riot, who kind of were the big ones at the time. Then, of course, you had Helix. And the reason Helix plays such a big part into all of this, which is there isn't obvious because, though you were being played with all those bands, but all those other bands came from the U.S. And for me as a Canadian, Helix was kind of like our band, it was there. It was, I guess you guys were always on Much and Toronto Rocks, and there was always this accessibility that we would get to see more of Helix than we would of the other bands. And it was amazing. So that to me, here at 51 years old, I'm very happy that you're joining me today because it's kind of an honor because I've grown up more or less, we haven't met each other, but you've been in my life since I was a kid. So
that's very cool. Ironically, we're more, I think, sound-wise like an American band. In the early days, when we were trying to get airplay on radio in Canada, there was very little place for us on Canadian radio. Where do you stick Helix in between Trooper and Parachute Club? So
there's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Parachute Club. Wow. Yeah, that goes back.
They actually beat us on for a Juno one year.
Really?
I think it was best live band or something.
Oh.
Imagine that.
Wow. I mean, that's... so people voted that, clearly. The people in the, that did the Junos, obviously someone voted for that and thought they were a better live band, which...
Well, everything goes out of Toronto,
Yeah, that's kind of strange, but... Anyways, so you will be Helix will be releasing yet another album, your 14th on Paris Records to be exact, entitled Scrap Metal on January 23rd. The first single, Stuck in the 80s, will be released December 12th, and the second, Fast and Furious, on December 19th. Possibly you can give me a little bit of backstory in terms of this release, because I think there's quite a bit of substance in regards to this one.
Well, we had a lot of songs left over that were partially written from the 80s. And initially, we put together Old School a couple years ago. Yeah. But then COVID came along. It didn't really get worked. And there were still songs left. And I started talking to Sean Kelly, who I write with a lot. And Sean and I had written a song called Stuck in the 80s. And these songs seemed to fit with that song that we wrote. And then I had made the decision to go in and finish off the demos that we never released. And they just started getting better and better and better. So then we came to the next step, and we decided that we'd cherry pick some songs off albums that maybe didn't sell a whole bunch, but, there were a lot of great songs on it. So the side A on the vinyl is pretty much brand new. And then side B is stuff like Coming Back with Bigger Guns from the Old School album, which only sold probably maybe 2,000 units. So for all intents and purposes, nobody knows the song.
Right. Jeez.
And we used Aaron Murray to produce, and he produced previous Helix albums. And Daryl came in and co-produced with him. And Daryl's played bass for Helix since 1983, and he's got a good feel with what we're all about and what we should sound like and how we like to record and things like that. He knows a lot about how I like my voice being recorded, for instance. And the two of them did a great job in production. And then we brought in the guys to play on it, and even Brent and Caleb came back to help as well.
That's cool. That's cool. Now, going through the songwriting credits, now Paul Hackman's name is in a lot of the songwriting credits still. Like some of those songs, there were things that you had from before that you kind of brought back to fruition.
I think Paul wrote co-wrote 7 of those songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, but we found out after the fact that we're releasing this album on January 23rd, and it's Fritz's birthday, and we had no idea.
Oh, that's cool. Now, stuck in the 80s could be a term I use for myself sometimes, because when it comes to music, a lot of the times, I'm still listening to a lot of 80s stuff, hence why I have a podcast geared towards a lot of that style of music. So, but there's something about that music that always draws my attention. I love the lyrical content in this song, and it kind of fits perfectly. What can you say about writing this song and capturing that sound of the 80s? I mean, it has that vibe, right?
It has that vibe. Well, that was primarily, I think, Sean, because Sean wrote the guitar for it. But lyrically, I was talking about how back in the 80s, it was a different sound and just a different attitude with everything. In fact, my favorite lyrics in that song are the pre-chorus after the lead, and it goes something like this. It goes, "Take a ride in my time machine back to when we were free, so much more than we are today. I don't know, what can I say?" And it's true, right? There's a rule and regulation for everything we do nowadays, and it's suffocating at times.
It absolutely is. I mean, I think, and I think I have this written in my notes, something about sometimes I want to go in the DeLorean and just live through that age again and go in that time machine just so I can live through that music again. And like I said, I was pretty young and right up until the end of the 80s, but there was something about it that I'm still drawn to after all these years, and that feel of the music, and it's probably like the whole vibe and everything that was going on at the times, and I mean, with what our world is today, I mean, probably I go back to that as well, because it just seemed like a simpler time then, right?
Well, not only that, but this music grew out of bands playing live across the country, whereas nowadays there is no bar circuit. So say a band in London, Ontario write an album, and they never really see the outside of London, Ontario until they get that record deal.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's so true.
When we travel across the country, we party with people, we talk with people, went to barbecues. Sometimes we slept with the locals, and so we have that connection on a grassroots level. So even though they might not know us for a couple of years, or by that I mean haven't bought an album for a couple of years, they still know us on a personal level from maybe having talked to us at a gig. We just finished off the Nazareth tour, and one of the biggest comments we got after the show when we were at the merchandise booth were people telling us stories about, like you, that they'd spent part of their life with Helix or listened to Helix music growing up. A lot of them brought their kids out to the show, and the kids would be telling me, "Oh yeah, Mom and Dad used to play your music for me when I was just young, and now I'm a fan." And so that's pretty cool. And so there's that connection with this music with people that isn't necessarily around for today's music and artists coming up with songs.
Yeah, I think back to the early 90s. I mean, I was born in Ajax, Ontario, but I moved out to Orono, and I went to high school in Newcastle. And I remember seeing Helix on the marquee at a place called Buster's in Newcastle, which I wasn't old enough to get in, and I wanted to go so badly, but I wasn't old enough, I don't think, at that time. So I missed the show, but I mean, that bar was what a lot of bars in Ontario were like, all over the place. Like those were the type of bars, and I became a musician myself, and I do play in Ontario. I'm in the tribute thing, but I play all over Ontario and play a lot. Like when I read your book, talking about different towns, and and I was like, oh, I've been to that place, and it really resonates to me, those type of things, and reading those types of stories, because I can really relate. It's not only relating to those times, but it's relating to the towns in Ontario. For me, it's Ontario. I know you've across Canada, of course, but that stuff really resonates.
Back in the 70s and 80s too, there was not a lot of other entertainment. There was no cell phones even. There was no computers, no video games. So people would go to bars, and the local bar, especially in small towns, was the social hub of that whole town. That's where you went to meet your future wife or husband. You went there and party with people from school, from work. And so once again, though, the music was much more part of the community than it is today.
Yeah,
that's probably why you relate to it on a personal level more, because you were probably one of the people that went to their local bars.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm writing a book right now called The Golden Age of the Canadian Bar Circuit, and it's all about that special time period in Canadian music from about 1964 to 1984, when rock was just taking off in Canada.
I can't wait to read that. Because I have it right here. I loved this book, and it's been a long time. It's been a long time since I read it, but I was skimming through it yesterday preparing for our interview, and there was things, after a certain amount of time, sometimes you forget things that are in a book, because I've probably read 100 books since then. Yes. So it was really cool to, especially some of the 80s stuff and some of the bands that you had toured with. And Keel was mentioned in the book, and I just had Ron Keel on the show last week, which was cool. And we were talking about the same type of things as you and I are talking about. And we discussed a lot of back in the 80s and you mentioned it in the book, of like three bands playing together. And we were talking about just how cheap it was. And now it's so out of proportion to how much it costs to see a big band with two other acts now. It's insane, right? So and I tell my kids, and I'm like, guess what? We saw like three bands for $25, and they're like, what? They can't believe it.
Yeah, because there was bands everywhere. And when the bar scene first took off, back, I'd say around 1973, it happened to a large extent because they dropped the drinking age right across Canada. And so bar owners saw the big bonanza in having bands. And once again, there was no other entertainment unless you played pool or bowled or something. And so there was a bar springing up on every corner. And Tom Wachkowski is a friend of mine who was around back then, said, if you played harmonica and could tap your foot and keep beat, you were in. There was a gig for you.
That's wild. And even skimming through the book, I saw, you have ads in there and of, like promo stuff and I'm like, and seeing something with like Max Webster or something like that, which a lot of people don't know who Max Webster is in the States. For our people in the US that are listening to this, like we just had a lot of really great music up in Canada that maybe didn't cross over to the States, right?
Well, there was a lot of Canadian bands back around that time period when rock and roll was first started in Canada that they signed worldwide deals to Canadian labels, not realizing that the Canadian label had no distribution outside of Canada. And so bands would have big hit songs in Canada and couldn't get a release in the United States, like James Leroy, for instance, with Touch of Magic, which was a huge song on Canadian radio. But there was other Canadian bands much like that.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, right? I think even like Triumph's deal was a little bit weird as well from watching the movie. I can't recall exactly what it was, but I think initially they were on Attic. Yeah. Anyways, like it, and some of these labels in Canada too that we talk about, like Attic Records, and then there's I think Aquarius Records was that an offshoot of Capitol? I can't remember, but there was, like these labels that were exclusive only in Canada. That I recall from back then, right?
GRT. There was another one.
Alert, I think that was Andy Curran's label that he was on. Like there was a whole bunch of little
We
ones,
got signed to Capitol,
which was
it
cool.
actually came down between them and Aquarius. And Capitol, I think, phoned Aquarius and said, look, we want this band to just back off. And so they did.
Cool.
I believe that Max Webster was on Aquarius, weren't they?
Aquarius,
And
I think
Anthem?
so. I think they were.
Or sorry, I'm thinking of April Wine.
Anthem. Okay, yeah, I think April Anthem. I forgot about them too. Yeah, that's right. And I'm trying to think of who was on Anthem, but I mean, yeah, you're right.
Coney Hatch, that'd be another one.
Yeah, I think Coney Hatch was on Anthem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. Now, tell me about the cover for Scrap Metal. This I saw it and I was like, oh, it looks like an old picture. Where was that taken?
Picture up in Niagara Falls, and it was actually for a magazine called AOR. Sorry, it was done for a Metal Hammer in Germany. I don't think they ever used those shots in that photo session, but I always liked the shots, and so I keep everything on Pat Rack. And I knew where the photographs were, and I thought this would be great for the to back up the title.
That's cool. Now I recognize everybody in. Daryl's not in that picture. There's somebody else. Is it?
No, Daryl's in there.
Am I in? Daryl's in there because there's a gentleman who is wearing the Whitesnake T-shirt.
I know. I got to think of the picture, but it's it's the '80s lineup. It's me, Brent, Daryl, Fritz, and Paul.
Fritz. Yeah. Okay. I was looking at it today and I was like, oh, I don't recognize. I thought I didn't recognize it, but sometimes where a picture might
they've
look
all changed a little bit. You know, people come up to me even now and they go, hey, you don't look the same as you did in the Heavy Metal Love video. I go, for God's sakes, we're talking like 40 years ago.
Exactly. I mean, I couldn't imagine you to still look. I mean, good for you if you did look exactly like you did in the Heavy Metal Love video. Yeah. I mean, but I don't think any of us are ever gonna. That's ever gonna, unless we find the fountain of youth, of course, right?
Well, rock and roll's a fountain of youth.
That's right. So, I mean, and I had mentioned the book, and as I was skimming through it too, I came across a story about a section where you had toured with Motorhead and Merciful Fate, and I had totally forgotten about this part about King Diamond, and it was kind of like, I remember some of those bands that were, into the cult and stuff, but you had mentioned to the fact that he would actually study the occult. Like he was really, I always thought that was kind of a gimmick thing for most of those bands, that they were actually into that stuff. Really, eh?
Sacred Bones, and he had some other stuff with him, right? I remember the last date of that tour, Lemmy took his Sacred Bones and hid them, and they put Bibles all around the Merciful Fate dressing room, and they taped porno pictures to the floor around the guitar player's pedal board, because I guess his wife or girlfriend was in some porn mag and he didn't know, so they thought they should inform him.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, so I guess he really was then. I mean, a lot of times you just didn't know, right? Who was, that was kind of a weird stage in that era of music too, that people brought that into the music. But I always just figured, it's kind of a gimmick or something. But clearly with him, it was not. So I find that interesting.
I didn't really hang out with those guys very much. I hung out more with Motorhead than I did with those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty cool that you got to tour with Motorhead though.
We did several tours of Motorhead, actually. The first tour we did was in the States. And the reason we got put on that tour is because we initially went out with Molly Hatch at Blackfoot, and that tour fell apart after 3 dates. And they stuck us on with Motorhead, and I think we started in Hartford, Connecticut. And we went from Hartford, Connecticut out to the First Avenue Club in Minneapolis, which was Prince's club. And that's where it ended. And remember on the last date, Brian Robertson wanted to punch out our sound man, Kenny Haig, because he went and took some stuff on their bus at the request of their road manager. And he was something else, that guy.
Robo. Yeah. But then I believe I did read an excerpt in the next tour you did with them, he was gone. Robo was gone after that, like the next tour you did with them, I believe.
Yeah, over in Europe, yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, you guys toured with, I mean, going through that book, except Crocus, Motorhead, Merciful Fate, Dio, Rough Cut, Keel, and the story about King Cobra was funny as well, where he split his pants, and I mean, that was watching Toronto Rocks and Much Music back in that time was all of those bands, right? I mean, your book is a great avenue for people that just, even if you don't know about the bands and the music scene, then to read your book is a great tool for that, to kind of familiarize yourself with what was going on at the times. I think you did a great job on it of really portraying.
Thank you very much. Well, it's pretty unique because we were the first band to go from Atlantic to Pacific in Canada. And the Canadian bar scene was different than any other place in the world, I think, just because of the vast distances between cities that you had to drive to get to the next town. There was as many places to play in, say, Pennsylvania and Ohio than there was in all of Canada.
Yeah.
So bands could travel in that little area in the United States and spend much less money on everything, fuel, vehicles, you name it.
Yeah. It's amazing. But I'm sure you wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, it's a great learning experience, right?
Well, there was positives to it too, because it forced us to go across the country and get an eclectic view of what our country was like. And it's vastly different from the east to the west.
Yeah.
And so we gathered all that, how can I say it? All those differences. And it came out in our music, as it always does.
Yeah.
Give us a more worldly view, I think, when we wrote.
That's amazing. Now, I was always curious about No Rest for the Wicked. The cover I always thought was brilliant, and I recall buying the tape at Wolco, if you remember Wolco stores, and
I remember Wolco,
and in Ajax, because that was the only store we had to buy music, was at this Wolco store. So I'd go off on my bike and I'd buy a tape, and then once I got the vinyl, I would stare at that cover because of the smoke, and he'd be kind of looking at the nightstand and like trying to figure what was on it. I mean, there wasn't much on it, but it just had this mystique about it. What do you remember about coming up with the concept for that cover, and was that presented to you to Helix, or was it a concept you had come up with?
No, that concept was Heather Brown that came up with that. And the funny thing was the glass on the night table has teeth in it.
Yes.
Like you just took your teeth up to go to bed, and there was a tooth missing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was right where I had a missing tooth at that time, and she didn't know anything about that.
No way.
It was just...
That's cool.
Something that came out in the artwork. But yeah, I love that album cover too. I love that album. It's one of my favorite Helix albums. Yeah. And Heather Brown did that album cover. I think she did Wild on the Streets, Walking Razor's Edge,
which are all great covers. Those four albums in that era. No Rest for the Wicked is one that I had on tape, but it wasn't until years later when Rock Candy reissued it, and I put it on, and I started listening to it continuously, and to this day now it is probably one of my favorite Helix albums. Maybe
the new album. Maybe Scrap Metal will be your new favorite Helix album.
I have listened to a couple of the songs so far, and I'm really liking it actually, and I hope people pick it up and give it a listen, because it's
an album.
Yeah, and it's in the vein of what you expect from a Helix album, in comparison to those albums from before, for the diehard fans that have been And I think it's amazing that you're still doing music, Brian, and you're still making it sound like Helix.
Thanks. Well, I just write songs that I like to listen to myself. They're not always metal. Sometimes I even venture into doing country songs and things like that. To me, it's just writing. I don't really think about, if this song's going to fit into that little whatever that people think that was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I think that because my influences are from heavy bands, growing up, that what I write usually comes out like that. I think I get a little bit of country because I actually started listening to music at my grandfather's place, and he was a big Johnny Cash fan. You know, Kitty Wells, people like that. So, that's where the country came from anyway.
Yeah, I grew up the same way. My dad was a big country guy and all the old country. So I grew up.
I think I got about 23 Johnny Cash albums in my garage.
Really? Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean it was funny too, because when I spoke with Ron Keel last week, we discussed that too, and he was the same. I think there's a lot of us whose grandparents or parents listened to country music, right? And that was my, like you said, my introduction to music was listening to this old country, and then it evolved into I wanted to rock out a little bit more, and maybe rebel against my dad a little bit as I became a teenager and wanted my music a little heavier.
Well, I got into music in high school, actually. When I got to high school, I bought my first rock album, which was American Woman by the Guess Who. And then I went to Litchfield District Secondary School, and they had a music teacher by the name of Jerry Fagan, who eventually became the choir conductor of the Fanshawe Singers down at Fanshawe College, London. And Jerry got the library in Listowel to put rock albums in that you could sign them out like a book.
Oh, cool.
And that's where I heard Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, Abbey Road. There was a few other rock albums in there, Jefferson Harp, Starship. And that's where I really started to get into rock music, was in high school from the library, of all places. And I started became a big Steppenwolf fan. I had Monster by Steppenwolf, Steppenwolf 7. I think it was a walk other ones.
Wow. There was one point I wanted to make, and I recall this from your book about, as I was going back and listening to the earlier albums again today, I did not realize, and I think because I was so young, how great all the background vocals were on everything.
That's something that's really overlooked with Helix. People don't think of us as being a vocal band, but we had 5-part harmony spots.
Yeah.
And nowadays, when we have practices, that's one of the main things we work on is our harmonies every night. We tape ourselves, we listen back, and make sure that they're all on. But, overlooked, our harmonies.
Yeah, because as I'm listening, I am trying to figure out, like, I'm singing along, but I'm like, okay, which harmony do I want to do here and what fits? But that's just how me as a musician works. But some of it, I'm like, this is a little bit tougher.
Well, we got 4 lead vocalists up front. Me, Daryl's got a great voice, and Chitch and Chris, they both could sing only where dogs can hear. So we got 4 strong voices out front.
And I believe in the book back in the day in the 70s, your manager used to have you guys sing backstage like Beach Boys stuff, and if I remember correctly.
Right. We started off, nobody could sing, so he'd get us in a circle, and one guy would kind of be the conductor, and we'd learn Round, Round, Get Around by the Beach Boys, and we all had our own part. And we had to sing our part by ourselves, and then we would sing them as a group. But you had to sing them first and foremost alone, because a lot of people would kind of hide behind other voices and stuff.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I mean, that part in the book has resonated with me since I read the book, because I just saw that was amazing. Well,
what you should really get out of that is the fact that we started off, we really didn't know how to play or sing, and we just worked on it. And the bar circuit allowed us to do that every night. And every week we'd work on harmonies, we work on better songs in the set, more demanding songs in the set. We'd always be trying to stretch out and do stuff that was a little bit beyond our reach. Right. And it showed up after the years of constant touring. I think one year we played over 300 dates. Wow. So if you're not good after that, then you should pack it in.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, 74 you were out, you started, right? Am I correct?
74 is when the band started. We probably went on the road about 76.
Wow. And then, I mean, release those the two albums, and then Capitol came along after like, what year was that? 82? 81, 82, around there?
83 is when we got signed to Capitol EMI. We came out with Breaking Loose in 1979, and we came out with White Lace and Black Leather in 1981.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, you guys were at it. You were working hard for a long time to get there, right?
Yeah. So you figure we started in 1974 and we didn't get a record deal to 83. So how many years is that? 9? So we were together 9 years before we got a record deal. But that's not out of the ordinary. A lot of bands, even Van Halen, were together for 6 years, I think, before they were signed. So we're not the first band to go through that.
Yeah, and Twisted Sister it took them a long time, like all through the 70s into, until the 80s as well. So,
and there's another hardworking guy, Dee Snider.
Exactly. Yeah, agreed. I totally agree with you. So you mentioned the new Scrap Metal. It is going to be on vinyl?
It's going to be on vinyl, CD, digital download.
Awesome. Cool. Have you seen the vinyl yet?
I haven't seen the vinyl, but the vinyl is in at Jay Panasico's place, who's my webmaster and does a lot of our social media stuff. Jay's father used to be a famous promoter, Nick Panasico. And he actually brought the Supremes or Diana Ross to London, Ontario when he was, I think, 16 years old.
That's cool. Wow. That's amazing. And I mean, I think about Detroit, and in the book mentioning Harpo's, that you guys had played in Harpo's probably numerous times. And I've only been there once, but it had a cool vibe. It was just one of those, I mean, it was kind of in a sketchy area a little bit, but it was a good rock bar.
Yeah, they used to have people patrolling the parking lot with baseball bats and Dobermans. But it was a club where everybody wished to play, and probably held a couple thousand people at least. We always had a great time there. Usually the gig was promoted by Wheels, I think, WLLC, and Lee Arnold was a big supporter of the band. He went to QFM in Milwaukee after that.
That's cool. I would assume you guys did well in Detroit.
We did great in Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit likes to rock, right?
It was a great rock city. The city has been kind of torn down economically over the years. I think we've got half the people left that they used to have back in the day when we played there. But I always loved playing Detroit. I played the Brits there too.
That's cool. I was just in Detroit 3 weeks ago for a show, because there's a lot of bands that aren't coming up to Canada anymore that you have to go, like we went to see the guitar player Richie Kotzen. And I'm a big fan. So is my wife. And we go down there to Detroit because he doesn't come up here. He used to come to the Rock Pile, but he doesn't seem to be coming up here anymore. So we have to go down to him, but I love going to Detroit. So it's...
My first gig in the United States was actually in Ypsilanti, which is just outside of Detroit. And it was a place called the Underground. And I remember we went down to the club, we had the address, we pulled in this parking lot, and we went, it's supposed to be here, where is it? Over in the corner of the parking lot, there was a set of stairs, and you went down the stairs, and there was the club below the parking lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Called the Underground.
That's amazing. Well, I guess hence the name, right?
Yeah, I think that Bob Seger's guitar player came out and saw us when we played there.
That's cool. Wow. Now, so Brian, I really want to thank you for joining me today. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go?
I just said I hope everyone picks up the new album, gives it a listen, and then emails me and tells me what they think. And come out to the show. We're still playing. The band gets better and better the more we play. The Nazareth tour, which we just finished, was wonderful. It was about 2,000 people a night. And
that's amazing.
Nazareth treated us like gold, so had a fantastic time on that tour.
Yeah. So the album is available on the Paris Records site as well as is it available on your site as well?
No, because I don't have a site right now. I'm in the midst of changing merchandiser, so it's quite a complicated process to set up a new merchandise site because, you got to take credit cards, you got to have a way to ship it and everything else. So I think we have now a store set up, Shopify and Amazon, but it isn't up and running yet.
Okay.
Also means getting the boxes to ship the stuff and figuring out the sizes and the weights and what we're going to put in the box. And shipping's so costly nowadays. I think what we're going to do is some of the first stuff we're going to put up for sale, though, is going to be maybe a compilation. In other words, it's almost as much to ship 2 albums in a box as it is to ship one. So put a couple albums together, and that way fans that buy it will save on the shipping. We'll have to separate. We'll put together some packages, so give a little bit back to the fans. I always like doing that.
That's super. I mean, yeah, and I can attest to that because anything I buy, any vinyl I buy in the States, sometimes I have it shipped elsewhere in the States and brought over because it is so expensive now.
Yeah, shipping's a killer. It really is. As for things I want to say, I just want to thank Tom Mathers and Paris Records and Michael Brandvold for helping put this together, Jay Panasico, all the people involved. A great production team, and Daryl Gray and Aaron Murray, of course, the guys in my band. And last but not least, Helix fans the world over.
Yes, awesome. Okay, Brian. Well, thank you again, and hopefully, I will see you out on the road. Hopefully, you'll be playing around here somewhere after the album gets released.
We're hired to play, and
Perfect.
sometimes I put together my own gigs. I usually pick safe markets because I don't want to lose a lot of my money.
I don't blame you. I know all about that. I know all about that. Yeah.
Well, last year I put together gigs for the band in London and Kitchener. They were great successes, actually. And we brought Enough's Enough up from Chicago. And we had a great band, great new Canadian band from London, Ontario called How's That opened the show. They were fantastic. So that went really well. But it's a lot of work. And unless you put in that great amount of work, like I said, things could go south pretty fast. You've got to spend a lot of money when you promote your own show. I'm not really a promoter, but I'll do it for my own band.
Cool. Well, watch out for that stuff. I mean, I was disappointed to see that Call the Office in London is no longer there the last time I was there. So
I heard somebody's going to reopen that place. So is that true?
I don't know. I hope so. That was a cool place. I remember seeing years ago Brother Kane with the Buffalo Brothers opening, and that was my introduction to them. And I became a huge fan. I still, to this day, love that band. And
Sean Sanders has a great voice. And the other guys in that band were no slouches either.
Yeah, they were. Oh, and then I wouldn't have wanted to carry that B3 organ up the stairs, but it sounded amazing. It sounded so good. So it was awesome. Okay, Brian. Well, you take it easy. And
listen, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining me. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much, and have a great night.
You too. Take care.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.